So welcome to What's Broken. Today I'm going to be working on a 2003 Sequoia for a friend of mine. Last week I changed this out. The one that was in there was all rusted up, and coupled with that problem I got it all cleaned out using brake clean and blowing it out with air. But it was still pretty beat up, so he decided to go with a new one from Toyota. I think it was about 230 bucks. You could buy cheaper on the internet, but I suspect he wants to keep this for a while, so figured maybe going with the Toyota product was a little better quality. This handle, which is what I'm going to work on today, the lever that operates the mechanism gets bent. So I'm going to take this out again. I couldn't do it the other day. Take it out and weld a little reinforcing rod so that lever will not bend again. Anyway, I'll get you set up in a stand and we'll get to it. Okay, then we'll start with popping some of these off. And next there's a 10mm bolt. Now we just work around the edges. As soon as I can get the tool in. Here we go. Don't want to be too brutal. Get close to where the connections are. Next there's a bunch of 10mm metal screws. They thread into nylon inserts. So when you're putting them back in, you want to be a little bit gentle because they can strip out fairly easily. I think that's all of them. And then there are a couple more of those plastic clips. Slides out and you can just let it hang. Okay, now the fun begins. I won't really be able to show you because it's more by feel, but there's a nut holding the handle here. There's one closer to the center, and then there's another third nut that holds in the rear key assembly, so you can lock, unlock, open or close the rear window. These are kind of done by feel rather than by seeing. They were a lot of fun last week when I took this out to replace the bottom lock mechanism because they were rusty. I cleaned up the threads, oiled them, so hopefully taking them off and putting them on won't be too bad this time. The other thing I did, and you can't see, is I either using a piece of twine or a tie-down strap, you can pull the door down a little bit to where it's at a more workable height. Oh, there's one nut. Now I'll take the one off the key lock. That's two. And the middle one's the most fun. I find you gotta kind of slide your hands in from both sides. It would probably help if my fingers were another 2 inches longer and skinny. Anywho, I think I got it on there. I hope that's the right one. Feels like it. Almost there. The tricky part is not dropping it. There we are. Now we'll move around to the back side. Okay, now being somewhat careful, I want to pop this out. You need to disconnect the cable. The ball slides into a part of the catch, and there's a little recess where this cable fits into a bit of a bracket underneath. Now I should be able to remove the assembly. And in the back there's 2 Phillips screws, and then the handle will come out. And I'll show you how we're going to reinforce that. And the handle's out. So just try and show you here. Let me get some light. Maybe that'll help. So what happens is, you know, over time, in this case 20 years, of doing that, lifting the handle, So this lever pushes down on this spring-loaded bar, and that lifts the end of the cable. Fits what I was talking about earlier, was the cable slot fits in there and the ball fits into this assembly. So that's what activates the mechanism to unlock or unlatch the rear door. What happened last week when I took this apart was this was bent at an angle like that. So when you tried to pull the handle, it barely even came in contact. So what I'm going to attempt to do today is to somehow tack weld a little bar from, let me get a screwdriver here, try to tack weld something from this point across here and to here. It just needs a little bit more reinforcement, and then hopefully it should last another 20 years. So I'll find some material, get set up, and hopefully capture the little welding job. Alrighty, I'll bring you back. Okay, let's give this a try. Hope I'm not having to buy a new handle. Watch your eyes. Put a little masking tape on to keep the splatter from getting on the handle, hopefully. I'm going to try to get a tack, try to get another little bit of a tack just under here. Yeah, right there. Well, I think that might be sufficiently tacked. Well, I'm gonna go for one more, just to be sure. I'll let that cool down a little bit. Doesn't appear that it heated the spring or cooked the spring. That should provide a little bit more reinforcement than what was there. You know, for a few cents more, Toyota could have put a handle in here, or a latch that worked a little better. Having said that, this probably works really well as long as nothing's all rusted up or corroded. but after 20 years that bottom latch gets rusted up, so it requires more force to push down on this lever, which probably causes a bit of metal fatigue and then the bending. Yeah, good to go. Well, I'll let it cool off. I'll lubricate this up really well, and then we'll put it back together. Oh, incidentally, in case you're wondering what I'm using for a little welder, it's just a little, I don't know, Process Handy Core 100 little MIG welder. It's got a high-low setting, a wire speed, and an on and off switch. So it's pretty basic. I've used it for the better part of 20 years, and change out the spool. It's relatively easy. So yeah, just a little side note there. I think I picked it up on sale from Canadian Tire or Princess Auto for, I don't know, $160, $180. So for doing little jobs like this, it comes in really handy. So all the pivot points are lubed up. Let me put a little bit around that where the spring Alright, well, let's put it back together. Setting this back in place and put in the two Phillips screws. There's one. And the other. Now, unfortunately, some of the plastics on this trim, you know, after 20 years, I guess you could call it plastic fatigue. But they're prone to breaking. However, by the time you put all the bolts back in, it sucks this in tight. To hold it in place until I get those inside bolts in, I just run the license plate bolts back in. Ooh, just gotta move you out of the way. There you go. Again, the most fun nut to get on is that middle one, so I think I'll just, you won't be able to see anything, so I'll just bring you back after I get those three set in place and hook the cable up. Alrighty. Okay, now I've got it installed. So there's the one nut on this. This is the easy one. The other one is farther in there on the other side of the cable. And to show you how it works after the cable's in place, so yeah. Last thing is to pop this. There's a little plastic holder here. Let me turn the light. There we go. Just holds the cable in place, which goes down. And the cable goes down into the new lock mechanism I put in a week or so ago. So I'll come outside here and put the cover plate on, put the plastic on, and should be good. Okay, to put the cover back on, slips over these two bottom plastic clips. There we go. Top one pops in, and then put these little metal screws back in. Don't over torque them because they can spin through the nylon bushings quite easily. So just till they're snug. Last week I squeezed a bit of silicone into each of these bushings just to assist with tightening. I suspect this has been taken off a few times over the years. Done! So the inside plastic just clips in at the top. You come around, make sure you're lined up. Pop those into place. Alright, the rear window's working. Oh, you're pointed a little high. I'll put the license plate back on it. And that's a wrap. Just one more check here. Looks good. Alright, until the next one, have a good morning, evening, or day. Bye for now.